Years ago, I was hired as a personal bodyguard for a businessman. Over time, I earned his trust and ended up coordinating security for his entire family, with 4 members under my command. During the holidays, my boss's children asked us to take them to visit the ruins of Cantona in Puebla. The guys invited their friends, and in total, a convoy of several SUVs was formed, with approximately 15 teenagers. The trip was calm, without any incidents, except that when we arrived at the archaeological site, we found it closed for reasons that were never explained to us. The kids, who had come very excited, were completely disappointed. After thinking for a moment, I suggested taking them to a place I had known during my years in the military. We turned around and adjusted the route to arrive, several hours later, at a pine-covered mountain range, where there was also a lookout point with a privileged view of the hills on the horizon. Once in the forested area, the SUVs made their way through a complicated dirt path, trying to advance as far as possible. From where we left the vehicles to the clearing at the top, we walked 4 hours in complete darkness. At 1 a.m, we set up camp and lit a bonfire. The kids had dinner and spent the early hours of the morning around the fire telling scary stories. Since I was responsible for the group, I stayed outside all night and sent 2 men to closely watch my boss's children. Everyone had a lot of energy. They barely slept a couple of hours, and by 8 a.m, they were already stoking the embers, preparing breakfast and serving coffee. I remembered that less than a kilometer from the camp, a stream was born. A singular corner of the forest, very fresh and visually striking. I tried to reconstruct the path in my mind, but honestly I was not entirely sure of the right direction. I decided to do a solo reconnaissance. I wanted to find the stream before leading the group of teenagers into the forest. Instinct led me to take a trail that curved to the left. A few minutes later, I began to hear the sound of running water, and I convinced myself I was on the right track. But suddenly, I came across something that had no reason to be there. Between 2 enormous pine trees, there was a staircase, wide stone and concrete steps in the middle of the forest. At first, I didn't pay much attention to it. I was too focused on locating exactly where the sound of the water was coming from. But something pulled my gaze back to it. The structure was peculiar. The stone it had been built with seemed to be coated by a transparent, bright and gleaming film. Until that moment, I had never heard of the strange phenomenon of staircases in the forest. I had no idea that something extraordinary was about to happen to me. The steps were solid, but had no lateral support. They weren't very tall, but they must have weighed a lot. What caught my attention was the balance, the force that must have been holding the base so that the upper steps wouldn't fall. I even hung from the top edge to test its resistance. I didn't realize it, but I had completely lost focus on my mission, to the point where it seemed like the only thing I had gone into the forest to do was explore that staircase. Suddenly, silence fell. A silence comparable to diving several meters underwater. Swinging from the 8th step, I dropped my pistol to the ground. It came loose and hit a rock. The sound it should have made never reached my ears, or it simply made no noise at all. I looked around, bewildered. The forest no longer seemed the same. In an instant, all sound had vanished. The singing of birds, the murmur of the stream, the rustling of dry leaves on the ground, the branches moving in the wind. I opened my mouth to shout, to check what happened with the sound of my own voice. The words passed through my throat, came out of my mouth, but were not heard. I reached for the weapon and engaged the safety to avoid an accidental discharge. I worked the mechanism, which also made no sound whatsoever. I picked up the cartridge slowly, my mind trying to find an explanation. I needed to understand what was happening to get back to reality, to escape from that unsettling illusion. My feet crushing the dry grass. Nothing. A hard blow against the trunk of a dead tree. Nothing either. I decided to keep looking for the stream, this time without the sound guiding me. But then I heard something. A single sharp noise appeared behind me.